Hello, I'm Alex Gorieron, one of your hosts for the JWU Explore from Home video podcast series. We want to welcome you back for this university-wide initiative as we highlight the expertise of some of our faculty and alumni and how their experiences at JWU have prepared them for their career today. Our conversation will be focusing on the Sports, Entertainment, and Event Management program at JWU, one of the largest programs within the School of Hospitality. Students enrolled in the SEM program can experience a cutting-edge curriculum focused on preparing them for a successful career. Joining us today is Jeffrey Longo and Stafford Braxton. Jeffrey Longo is an associate professor teaching at the university since 2013, and prior to that, he taught a master's level class at Wingate University. And some of his industry experience includes president to the Charlotte Checkers professional hockey team, vice president of marketing community development for the New Jersey Devils, and president of the San Diego Gulls professional hockey. Longo currently enrolled in the doctoral program of education and sports management from the United States Sports Academy and has a master's of sports administration from Wingate University and a bachelor of arts in psychology and communications from Rutgers University. And joining Jeff today is alum Stafford Braxton. Stafford graduated from JWU in 2014 with a bachelor's in the SEM program, and he currently works as a marketing analyst for the Charlotte Hornets. Previously, he has worked as the communications assistant for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, along with USA Swimming, and a marketing and business development intern for USA Triathlon, and a marketing sales manager, social and digital media manager at Mason Chart Group. Welcome, Jeff and Stafford. Thank you for joining us here today. As we get into talking about the SEM program, both the Providence campus and the Charlotte campus offer some unique opportunities around this program. But today we're going to focus on the experience at the Charlotte campus. And so, Jeff, can you get us started and talk to us a little bit about the SEM program and its advantages of the location there in Charlotte?
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever somebody asks about what sets our program in particular apart, generally we like to talk about the three Ps. So those three Ps are programming, people, and place. And when we say programming, we've got a kind of what's called an upside down curriculum at Johnson & Wales. So students coming in that know they want to, be in the SEM program are starting courses in that program on day one. So their first term as a student, they're taking SEE classes. I remember personally as an undergraduate, not even taking my first psychology class until my junior or senior year, right? Doing everything general ed. So we get students involved right out of the gate. And, Stafford's a great example of that, right? He was doing internships his freshman year because he already, knew that was the road he wanted to go down. We talk about people, our professors at the university generally have come from an industry background, right? So not just academics, but have also worked in the industry, whether that's, professional hockey, professional football, sports marketing agencies. So our professors, I think have a focus on not only learning the material that students need to be able to apply, but also work with students on how to apply that to be successful in the industry, right? Here's what the book says. Here's what it looked like in my career. How do we shape that to, make it help your career path moving forward? And then lastly, the thing that you touched on, Alex, is place or proximity. The university is literally right in the middle of uptown Charlotte. You can walk, and students do walk, to internships and jobs with, the Carolina Panthers, the Charlotte Hornets, NASCAR. And no different, those industry professionals who work at those places feel comfortable, and it's nice and easy for them to walk over and teach a 7:30 class or come in and be a guest speaker during the lunchtime. So that location at Uptown Charlotte benefits both the students in terms of accessibility to their jobs, but also in terms of accessibility to industry pros coming to campus.
That's great. Stafford, can you share with us a little bit of your decision and selection process in attending JWU and going down this career path?
Yeah, absolutely. My path to Johnson Wales was a little bit different, definitely unconventional. Coming out of high school, I was a swimmer and wanted to continue to do that in my college career. Had actually planned on going to a different university to pursue that. But at the time I had a family member that was playing for the Carolina Panthers, and he shot me a text message and asked me had I ever heard of this school, because I was going to do the same sports management program. He asked me if I had heard of Johnson and Wales, and I said that I hadn't. He sent me over, a link to the website. And he said, check it out. Come down here for the weekend. We'll check it out together, and then we could talk about it and see and go from there. I was like, okay, can't hurt to go to Charlotte for the weekend. That could be fun. So came down to the Queen City, and I toured the school on my first day down here. And honestly, it was weird because I felt like from the moment that I stepped on campus, I was like, I knew that this is kind of where I wanted to be, for a couple different reasons. Stepping onto campus, it's directly in the middle of uptown Charlotte. You've got all the hustle and bustle of a big city, and at the time, Charlotte was a little bit of a smaller city. We're growing constantly now, but at that time, Charlotte was a little bit of a smaller city, and it was still growing, but it still had all of those endearing qualities of New York, but in the South. And so, taking the tour and hearing, the professors have direct experience in coming from the sports field. The classes are a little bit smaller, so it's hands-on. Not even, just those things, just all the outside of the classroom opportunities that the university had to offer with regards to student government and being involved in the athletic department and things like that really just kind of hit home with me. And, I left campus thinking, this is kind of weird, but I think this is where I want to go to school, like kind of dropping everything that I thought I wanted to do behind me. And so, yeah, it was kind of last minute. I applied, blessed that I got in and was able to carry on my undergraduate career at Johnson & Wales. But yeah, a little bit of an unconventional path to getting there, but definitely something that I'm proud to have done.
That's great. You both have mentioned a little bit about your internship experience. Can you share with us and with our audience the key to success in terms of internships and advancing your career, and what that internship experience was like for you, Stafford, at JWU?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest things that Johnson & Wales preaches is internships in general, not just the internships that you need to complete for credit, but just internships in general. And I think the sports program, you need experience. It's great to, get this degree, but there's some things that you just can't learn in a classroom that have to be hands-on. And so, I understood that kind of from my first day. And like Jeff said, I had an internship my freshman year with the Charlotte Checkers, working as a game presentation intern. And that was just kind of my first foot in the door with how does sports work, and, seeing the behind the scenes. And, it's not always glamorous work, but it's a lot of fun. And so I think in total, I've probably had 6 or 7 internships. One of those was for credit, but the others were just because I guess I'm crazy and I want to be involved. But yeah, I mean, from my freshman year all the way through my senior year, I had some sort of internship up until, my internship that counted for credit. And that credited internship is what led me through my career path. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, but yes, I definitely think that the internship program is important. I think, stepping outside of that, I just need one to get my degree is also important because like I said, having that hands-on experience and that knowledge, some things you just can't get in a classroom. And I think it's super important to put yourself out there. And it's also a great way to network and market yourself. You're not gonna, people aren't gonna know who you are or want to hire you if they don't know who you are. So I really do think that Johnson Wales does a really great job at connecting you with those opportunities, but also letting you know how important those opportunities are going to be later in your career.
And Jeff, what kind of curriculum and classes can students expect through this program in terms of the experiential learning, and what kind of transferable skills do you suggest and recommend to students?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, as I was saying earlier, with the programming starting right out of your first term, students will come in and they'll take an intro to SEE class where they're getting a broad perspective of this is what a career in sports looks like, this is what a career in events looks like, this is what a career in entertainment looks like. And the reality is those things are becoming way more intermingled than they ever were before. But from there, if a student identifies a particular area of interest, they would then launch into an intro for sports class or an intro for events class or an intro for entertainment class. And each time they're digging deeper and deeper into specific aspects of that. So we literally have classes as specific as ancillary revenues and services, which deals with, food and beverage, merchandise and parking operations. We have negotiations classes, we have new media literacy, but they all start off with that very kind of broad perspective, and then dig down deeper as students identify which areas they want to get more involved in.
And with that too, obviously the industry is very competitive. We talked about internships in general, but how do you set yourself apart in this industry as a student coming out as a graduate? And it's certainly a tough career path. It's not a 9 to 5 kind of typical job, but there is some tremendous fulfillment and reward that comes through on this. Can we speak a little bit to that and how we can set ourselves apart and the expectations of the industry?
Yeah, I'll touch on that first. I know for myself, now being in a position where, I can hire people, things that I look for is, like I just said, experience. You can, have all the degrees, but, I need to know that, you can step into an environment that is fast paced and that you can handle yourself in this kind of environment. So like experience, and then just even internships is something that we look for as well, because there's just something that an internship can give you that certain things can't. And like I said, it's that hands-on being in that environment. So setting yourself apart is just, working hard for one, being able to adjust to quick pace environments, I think is probably the largest thing, especially in the sports, entertainment, and event world. And just being willing to put in that extra work and go the extra distance without being asked. That's something that, you truly need to have. That's not something you can teach someone. That's, something that you have. And we learn that and understand that in the interview process, but that comes across first in what we see when you present us with your resume.
Yeah, Stafford just touched on so many things that are so important, and I'll even go back to his interest or experience as a student athlete in swimming, right? So many young people have a passion for sports, and often that passion starts with wanting to be a professional, right? They want to play that sport for as long as they can, and the reality is at some point somebody tells you can't play anymore, right? Whether that's after high school or after college or even after a pro career. And you look at it, Stafford spent so much of his life being passionate around swimming, and here he is as a 22 or 23-year-old working for USA Swimming, right? He's building towards a career where he could work for the next 30 years in that field that he's felt so passionate about. So in terms of like doing the internships and setting yourself apart, the amount of grit and perseverance that students display after graduating, from the university to get themselves in and kind of establish themselves as a top candidate for these positions is really phenomenal. And that's why the internships play such a big part in that, right? It's a 16-week interview for the most part, right? As an intern, you have an opportunity to show up every day and work a little bit harder than that person next to you, right? But for the organization, they want to make sure that you're comfortable learning what a 14-hour workday looks like, or, how to work on a team and how to grind with people again and again. Over the course of an internship, you can very clearly, as an industry pro, figure out what students, are forward facing and always thinking about those hospitality aspects and how they put the customer first. So instead of trying to prove yourself in an hour-long interview, that's what an internship, serves as an opportunity to do that over an 11-week or a 16-week period of time, so that you can show that you've caught on to the little things that, we used to call soft skills, but really those soft skills are the important things. How you lead a group, how you talk to professionals, how you serve as part of a team. And those are all things that, like Stafford said, you can learn the idea and the philosophy in a classroom, but you need to get out in the industry and actually do it and prove it and learn it and internalize it yourself. And that's what those opportunities provide.
And Stafford, in terms of your career path and, for other students that are kind of following in the SEM program, what kind of jobs do some of those recent graduates either land, or what opportunities are out there for them once they graduate? And a little bit with your kind of perspective, but also you're hiring out there too. So if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the entry level opportunities are endless, honestly, when they come to sports. There's somewhere to get in everywhere. For myself, like I said, I'll just start kind of with my path in the Olympic movement. I started as an intern. Now I was 23 years old doing an internship, but I knew for me that in order to get where I wanted to go, this was going to have to be the start, right? I had talked to industry professionals who had worked in the Olympic and Paralympic movement. 9 times out of 10, they hire from within, and that start is going to be an internship program. So I left a paying job to take an internship. That was a big risk, but it was my entrance, and it paid off because then 4 months after that internship, I was offered a full-time job, which led to another full-time job that just kept getting better and better. So the opportunities out there are endless. You do have to be willing to kind of take that risk if it's something that you're passionate about, because sometimes it might not be exactly the title that you want or exactly the amount of money that you want, but taking that risk could lead to something really great. And that's paid off for me time and time again. I've, always kind of worried when you do it, but then later it really does pay off. So, right now, look at the advice I would give is, go on LinkedIn or, search companies that are really, really love. And, open up those job descriptions and see the types of, requirements that they're looking for, and try and build those, through either internships or volunteering opportunities, or, just learning online. There's, plenty of opportunities that are offered there. Really try and build up those skills so that when you do apply, you become more appealing to the group. So, I'll even say right now I'm hiring someone for my team, and it's an intern that we had a year ago. But that's because, he was an intern. We saw him for an entire season, work extremely hard. We know that he could handle this job. And so, we're bringing him onto our team. So that's just another one of those opportunities where he took an internship, it paid off, and, now he's coming back full time for something that he's passionate about.
And with the pandemic, and just wondering, what are some of the changes in the industry in terms of either new opportunities that you're seeing out there, and or even maybe some new skill sets that you might be looking for? And I'll kind of open that up to both of you in terms of what's happening in the curriculum, but then what's happening out there and new opportunities in the industry.
Yeah, I'll start in on that. I think with the pandemic, a lot of things that were happening in the industry in terms of research and development just got some gasoline poured on the fire, right? So whether or not it was technology advances that led to ticketless entry or contactless service, with food and beverage, et cetera, and even some of the safety and security measures. I think these were all things that were coming down the pipeline anyway, and these were improvements that were bound to happen and needed to happen in the industry. And this has just made those happen a lot more quickly because people realize the necessity to do so. So I think that's a typical thing in the sports world. As the technology continues to improve, people adjust towards that. So that could be something as simple as like their in-seat viewing experience, to the ability to order food from your seat, not have to get up and stand in line for 30 minutes after you just paid $100 for a ticket to see that event. So, again, there have been certain opportunities that have come out of it, only in that it just sped up the rate at which these improvements were already bound to happen.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of what Jeff said, yes, in the sense that digital is now the all and be all, right? I think we already knew that we were growing in a digital age, but when this happened and we are no longer allowed to have people in the arena, we can no longer be fan facing. That really changes the name of the game and how we do things and how we communicate with those customers. So, for my job in itself, I'm a marketing analyst. Well, 2 years ago, this was a one-person job, and now there's 4 people on my team. And that grew through the pandemic. We've hired 2 additional people, and we're hiring another one in the coming weeks, because our main focus now is growing our social platforms, making sure that we are creatively giving digital assets to our partners, executing marketing, email marketing campaigns that are up to par for our partners. All of that is now so much more important than it was, because we had the opportunity to fulfill all of these assets and these programs in a building, that now we can still do that now. Thank God fans are coming back, but we're putting a lot more emphasis on the digital side of things. So, Another example is we had one person running our entire Hornets app. We now have 5. So it's like, because like Jeff said, it's digital entry. You have to do a health screening on your phone. There's so many different things now that play into that are more important than what they used to be. This is a trend that's absolutely going to continue to grow. So being in, the digital space and the analytics space is something that's going to continue to grow. And I'm glad that I, was able to, get in the bottom level and continue to grow with it. Another thing that was different for us during the pandemic was all of our internship or additional programs either got canceled or they were moved to being completely virtual. And I think the reason that we considered, or the reason that we did cancel our internship program for that time was, like we just discussed, there is something about hands-on that just doesn't come with learning virtually for us. I can tell you what a game presentation looks like from home, but unless you can get in there and do it, you're not getting the full experience. So happy to be bringing that internship program back next season. But yeah, so the things that have changed, some good, some bad, but overall really positive for us.
That's great. That's great. A lot of great information. As we wrap up our conversation here, you kind of touched a little bit on there, but I wanted to offer the opportunity to share any last thoughts or advice for any current or prospective students. Any tips or advice as we kind of wrap up our discussion here?
I'll go first. Current or prospective students, be passionate, be excited, and I'm the truth teller, and sometimes that may be good or bad, but don't expect it to be all rainbows and unicorns all the time. You're entering an industry that is cutthroat, and everybody wants to do it. It's an exciting place to be, and I get why, but you have to go into every day thinking about what's going to set yourself apart and what can you do to really be unique in this industry. And every person that you meet can lead you to a different place. So do your best to always put on your best face and be as professional as possible. Because you don't really know who that person may know that could take you to the next spot. But be excited about what you're doing in your career, because it once you do graduate, or even during your undergraduate program, there's a lot of exciting opportunities out there. You just have to be willing to go out there and get it, and really don't be scared. There were some times that I was a little scared and I missed out on opportunities. I look back on those and I'm like, man, if you would have just done it, you would have been fine. But don't be scared. Get out there. There's somebody next to you who wants it just as bad. So run a little bit faster and work a little bit harder, but it's definitely worth it in the end.
Great. And Jeff, you have any last tips or advice?
Yeah, I think for students, it's get involved and get involved quickly, right? Or whether or not, you want to start out by putting your toe in the water, or you want to jump in with both feet. 4 years goes by quickly. I was joking with a student the other day who was about to graduate. I said, you're a grown man now. I feel like just a few weeks ago you were just coming to us, right? But Stafford and this student that I'm talking about are both great examples of that, right? Like freshman year, doing an internship, being a part of a club on campus, helping out at the rec center, and doing all of those things. Man, 4 years goes by fast. And when you're trying to figure out like exactly what the right path is for you, the best way to do that is just keep trying stuff, so you gotta start trying things as soon as possible. So my advice would be get involved, don't sit on the sidelines, and your path will figure itself out as long as you work hard towards it.
That's great. Well, thank you again, Stafford and Jeff, for joining us and sharing all this great information. Whether you crave the pace and action of a live event in a sold-out stadium, or becoming a successful event or a meeting planner, or the more personal interaction of a seasoned guest relations manager, JWU's sports, entertainment, and event management programs can certainly help build that career. And to all of you exploring at home, thank you for listening in. And please check us out online at jwu.edu to explore more. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Stafford. Thanks you, Jeff.
Bye. Thank you, guys.